What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Nemo Propaganda here, and today we're going to review the REL S850. This is part of new Series S. It's been revised from top to bottom. Every single model has been updated, changed. It's all new stuff, and we're going to chat about it. Let's get those main specs on screen so you guys can check that out. I'll tell you about what makes a subwoofer unique, what's special about it. We'll compare it to some other subwoofers, especially REL's own subwoofers. So existing customers thinking about upgrading can kind of get a better idea of what they could expect. Things like that. We'll talk about room setup, right? What it sounds like, and then we'll wrap up the video. So first standout feature, look, it's just going to be the beauty, the aesthetics, the fit and finish. Oh my God. Do you see it? Do you see it on screen? Do you see that beautiful champagne finish on the driver? Do you see it contrasted by that carbon fiber dust cap? Oh my goodness. Do you see the lacquer paint? It looks so darn good. The handles on the side, the plaque at the top that says REL, these used to be polished stainless steel in the outgoing Series S. They're now a matte or satin finished stainless steel. Some might even call it nickel. It looks so good. This looks, look, if REL lied to me when they sent me this and told me this was the replacement for the Carbon Special, I would have believed them on aesthetics alone. That's how beautiful I think it is in person. They did a phenomenal job. There are two grill options. The standard MDF grill it ships with, which is very heavy duty, or the slat wood grill is available at an upcharge for those that prefer that aesthetic. Out back, you've got a ton of connections. You know, you've got your XLR, your low-level RCA, your REL high-level cable, ability to daisy link this thing and bolt it to a 6-pack if you've got the deep pockets for that, right? And you've got a plate amp, which I was at REL's headquarters about a month ago. They had a little event. I did a whole, video about that. But for those of you that missed it, let me give you some tidbits about this subwoofer. So around back, it's got a toroidal transformer. You can't see it, obviously, unless you take apart the sub. But at the event, they had an exploded view of the sub. And I noticed this massive toroidal transformer out back. And I was like, hey, this is a Class D amp. It's got 850 watts RMS. Why the giant toroidal transformer? That's a really expensive way to build a Class D amp. The engineer looked me square in the eye and he said, because it sounds better that way. I love that. I thought that was great. And that's how it should be. When you spend this kind of money on a product, part selection should be essentially without limits at the R&D phase, right? So great job there. Another thing, because I got to talking to them, and turns out they stress tested this plate amp. So look, the plate amp's rated at 850 watts RMS. It puts out a little bit more than that, but they stress tested it up to 1400 watts. So that tells me at 850, it is going to last a long, long, long time. And again, that's great. That's good. That's how it should be. When you spend this kind of money, you should know that stress testing, R&D, part selection, these things are all top tier. And that is the case with this unit. Let's talk about the price real quick, because I know a $4,000 subwoofer, some people might get sticker shock. Like, what do you mean? I can get a 24-inch or just stay with me. You don't have to be able to afford a Ferrari or a Lamborghini to enjoy a YouTube video about one. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, we can't all afford everything, and that's okay. And that's okay. And guess what? If this is outside of your price budget, that most likely means this is not the right REL sub for you. And in fact, a cheaper REL sub is going to fit your system better. Let me explain. So this bad boy's $4,000. Let's say, we got a guy, he's 25, he's just getting his life together. Or maybe you're in your 40s and you got kids and you make good money, but you're putting the kids through college. They each got a car. There's only so much money to go around, and you're like, I can't do a $4,000 subwoofer. You know what I mean? Okay, well, if that's the case, I'd imagine your system is probably in that like $2,500 to $5,000 category. And if that's the case, a $4,000 subwoofer doesn't make sense. Let's say you've got, speakers around, $1,000 to $2,000, something like a Zoo DWX. You have, good amplifiers, but they're relatively affordable, something around $1,000. Figure your Iota VX SA40, your Outlaw RR2160, your Emotiva TA2. You got an amp like that, right? Well, that's a really good system, but you don't need a $4,000 subwoofer with a system like that. REL's much more affordable HT1205 that sells for $899 is a perfect fit for you, my brother. So don't fret if this is out of your price category, guys. REL makes subs at all price categories, and I promise there is one for everyone. But back to the S850, the topic at hand. So, where do I think they improved this over the outgoing model, besides the aesthetics, you know what I mean? Well, the outgoing Series S really, really did require a room that was sized medium or larger. I would go ahead and say new Series S, that's still a recommendation, but it's more just a recommendation now. You can actually get away with an S850 in a smaller room like mine now. My room's only about 12 by 14, 9-foot ceilings. It's not massive. This is considered a small room. And, you know, in a room like this, without any room treatment, for example, outgoing Series S would be a little bit too rowdy. You know, it would maybe overload the room fairly quickly. You might not have as much granularity in your gain knob and things like that because it was designed for medium and larger rooms. New Series S seems to have solved that problem, and I talked to REL about this to confirm that I wasn't just making the stuff up in my head, and they said, yes, that was very intentional. While we do recommend Series S for medium and up, we just know a lot of people aren't going to listen to us, and everyone's, you know, kind of got the space they got, right? Because there are people like me who like, I just happen to have a small listening room, but I can afford like nice gear. You know what I mean? I'm pretty lucky. I'm pretty blessed. I got a great job, you know, pays the bills real nicely. And I want to be able to use something like this in my room, and I can now, right? New S850 played so well in my room. Setting up one of these REL S850s in my room was easier than setting up my own carbon specials in my room. For those of you that don't know, I do own a pair of REL carbon specials. And if you're like, hey, you just said REL's outgoing carbon specials didn't play well with small rooms, and you just said you have a small room, what's going on there? Well, I have tons and tons of bass traps, and just I've done a ton of stuff I don't expect most people to do. And that is why, you know, outgoing Series S, again, medium room and up, and new Series S, you could stuff it in a small room and it'll sound beautiful still. So that's really cool. But let's talk about what the subwoofer sounds like overall. You know, why do I love it so much? Why is it just most likely going to be a product of the year, right? Look, I know some of you guys have already seen a lot of my reviews. I've reviewed a ton of REL subwoofers. I believe I have reviewed more REL subwoofers than anyone else. And I'll list them off if you don't believe me. T5i, T5X, T7X, T9X, T9X Rosso, Classic 98, 1205 Mark 1, 1205 Mark 2, 1003 Mark 2, Predator 1510, S510, and Carbon Special. That's a lot. That's a lot of reviews I've done on a single brand. So suffice it to say, I am intimately familiar with their products, and I've owned many of their subwoofers as well. Yeah, I had the T7Xs here. I still have a T7X here for years, a HT 1003, a HT 1205. Fun fact, I'm sitting on an HT 1205 right now. I own Carbon Specials. I know this brand well. And for those of you that have seen a ton of my reviews, you know what I'm about to say, but I got to say it anyways for the guys who are tuning in for the first time. REL subwoofers, especially Series S, we can simply use one short phrase to describe it. I will break it down further, of course, but when it comes to bass fidelity, any descriptor, any word you want to use to describe bass fidelity, this is a world-class subwoofer. It's just that simple, but let's break it down further. What do I mean by that? Note-to-note distinction is in the difference between, say, 30 hertz and 35 hertz or 40 hertz. Very clear on the REL S850. Transient response, especially in the lower frequencies. Getting really good transient response in the mid bass region, figure, you know, 50 hertz on up. And before anyone freaks out that I just called 50 hertz and up mid bass, there's no agreed upon definition, guys. Give me a break. That's what I think, okay? But the transient response this thing can do at, say, 25, 30, 35 hertz is incredible. It is incredible the way it can pressurize the room so effortlessly with such a large and grand and effortless sense of scale. That effortless nature, where it has that bass that's coming from an ink black background, is what makes it so special, as well as, you know, all the other, you know, things I just said. Because most subwoofers do not sound effortless, in my opinion. They just don't. They sound, in fact, very forceful. And I think a lot of people enjoy that. And it's okay if you enjoy that kind of like bearing down on your ears experience. I prefer bass that is almost weightless on my ears, but bears down on my body. And that's what the S850 does. So again, whether we're talking about handling of delicate passages, phenomenal integration where the subwoofer truly gets out of the way. And I kind of hate that phrase because I've seen so many reviewers use it with so many subwoofers that I've reviewed. And if you watch my own review, I don't say that because most subwoofers don't get out of the way. Most subwoofers do draw attention to themselves. It's the nature of the beast for most of them. It is very difficult to make a pure SQ subwoofer that can get as loud as S850 does. Oh, by the way, fun fact, REL told me the new S850 can actually get louder than the outgoing Carbon Special. That's pretty darn impressive. So look, how does it sound? Phenomenal, among the best, world class. I'm going to sound like a broken record if I keep going on, okay? Let me tell you how it compares to some other stuff to help give some context to what I've said. And let's start with the 1205 Mark II, because in the beginning of the video, I told you guys like, hey, if you can't afford this, don't fret. You know, you can own a REL 12-inch subwoofer for much less money if this is out of your budget. And that is the 1205 Mark II. It sells for $899. You could get a pair of them for less than what one of these things cost, right? What are the differences? So the HT 1205 Mark II tonally is going to be a lot more dry, right? The 850 is going to be quite a bit more textured. It's going to be slightly warmer tonally. It's not a thick and juicy and warm sounding presentation, but compared to 1205 Mark II, it is going to be a little bit warmer and a lot more tonally, a lot more textured with its bass delivery. The S850 is going to be quicker. It's going to hit harder. It's going to play louder. It's going to have better transient response. Pretty much in every way we want to compare it to the 1205 Mark II, the S850 brings us tremendously more to the table. This is not a small step up. However, with that said, just so you guys know, just so we're clear, I still consider the 1205 Mark II one of the better sounding 12-inch sealed subwoofers in the market for its price category. Its little brother, the 1003 Mark II, has been awarded by me Subwoofer of the Year two years in a row. And I'll probably give it the award again this year because I still haven't found anything better in its price category in terms of bass fidelity, right? So for my guys that own Series HT, 1205 Mark II, for example, and you're like, I want to upgrade to this. Is it a massive upgrade? Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes. And if you can afford it, absolutely do it. You will not regret it. For my guys that can't afford this, I just told you this thing's like so much better than the 1205 Mark II. Yes, it is. But it's substantially more cost. 1205 Mark II is still very, very good. And fun fact, guys, if you pay attention, I've said this many times, REL's HT range is actually my favorite. It's not their best, right? Series S, I just told you is better, but what Series HT can do for the money is what impresses me so much. Series HT just bangs so high on the value meter. So again, for my guys where something like this it's not in the cards right now, you owe it to yourself to check out Series HT. Now, some of you guys might be like, how about the Predator 1510? Let's talk about the Predator 1510. That's the largest Series HT and, quite a bit more money. It's around $2,000. So you can get a pair of those instead of one of these. And look, if you're building a dedicated theater, it might make more sense to do that. Dual 15s, getting 1,000 watts RMS a piece is going to give you tremendous scale and an effortless presentation that a single 12, no matter how good it is just not going to be able to do on its own, right? Predator 1510 is absolutely remarkable. It's quick, it's dynamic, just like 1205 is quick and dynamic. Series S is just going to be a lot more textured. It's going to have a little bit more, I swear, guys, I don't know what it is. I sit down and film these reviews and I got a cough all of a sudden. I haven't coughed like in 2 weeks. Anyways, I digress. Series S is going to be a lot more textured. Its handling of delicate passages is going to be a lot better. But again, if you're doing just a dedicated theater, I wouldn't blame you if you went with two Predator 1510s instead, just because again, the scale you're going to get from dual 15s, I don't care how good a single 12 is. I mean, a single 12 is a single 12 and dual 15s is dual 15s. Now, what can you expect if you're coming from something like a T9X? A T9X is going to be an upgrade compared to Series HT in terms of bass fidelity, tone, and texture. Series TX is where you get your first step up in terms of bass texture and those like handling of delicate passages, that fidelity overall. And the interesting thing about that is like T9X is not a big sub. It's a compact 10 inch. And when most people buy a T9X, they're under the impression this is as good as it gets. I've talked to many people that owned a T9X and upgraded to Series S, and they all said the same thing. They all thought, they're like, there's no way Series S can be better. Series S is probably going to sound as good as T9X and just extend lower and play louder. And then we all got our hands on Series S and we were like, oh my God, how is it so much better? So my T9X guys, if you're looking to upgrade to Series S, it is a pretty big jump there as well. Classic 98 is very different. Classic 98 is designed to be intentionally more tuneful, have more bloom to it, be a more relaxing presentation. All these REL subwoofers integrate phenomenally well, just so we're clear. Whether we're talking about HT, T9X, or Series S, you can expect that same level of high quality integration. But Classic 98 is a little bit different. Classic 98, it's not about which sub's better here. It's not about is Classic 98 better or is Series S better. Series S is technically the better. When we get into Classic 98 or Classic 99, this is about personal taste. Because Classic 98 and Classic 99 are designed to have some tonal qualities to them that we would not describe as accurate. They're there for flavor. They're there for enjoyment. They're there for guys who want that type of sound. So if there's any confusion on which REL subwoofer is really for you, I did make a video where I compared all four of the ranges to each other, but what might, and I'll link it in the description below, but what might be even better is just call REL, tell them about your system, tell them what you're looking for, and they can really help you kind of get the right sub. And oftentimes you'll be surprised because when I was there, I heard them on the phone. It's not uncommon for them to like size someone down, or instead of getting this really expensive one, get like two of this like smaller one, for example, and things like that. Even for me, when I was looking at buying T9Xs, I told them about my room. I told them about my system. And this was many years ago. My system was very different. They were like, you should actually do T7Xs in your room. And I did, and they were totally right. It was phenomenal. So look, I've told you about what the subwoofer sounds like. I've told you how it compares to some other stuff. And I know there's going to be some people that are like, hey man, like at this price, I can get like a 21-inch sub from some, I know. REL is not claiming to participate in the game of loudest subwoofer for your money. We all know, guys, if you want the loudest subwoofer for your money, go to Parts Express website, buy a Dayton Ultimax 18-inch driver. They're a couple $100. Buy some MDF, make your own 10 cubic foot cabinet, get one of those cheap Crown, like $500 XLS amplifiers, you know, and that nothing will be louder than that. Nothing will be louder than that for the money, guys. Nothing, right? But the S850, just so we're clear, this is like a medium-sized subwoofer. It can get exceptionally loud. A single one in my room is tremendously more bass than I would ever need, right? So let's just be clear. But I just know someone in the comments is going to be like, but I could DIY this. I know we can DIY stuff, guys. I know. But I don't know about you. I don't have a full wood shop in my garage. I don't know how to design plate amplifier filter sets. I don't think most guys do. A lot of, when it comes to subwoofer DIY, most of the time it's not even DIY. It's like assembly is what you guys are doing. You're saying it's DIY, like you're not, designing your own amp, right? Anyways, I digress. I just wanted to get that out of the way. I knew someone would say something. But look, let's tie it all together. New Series S is going to play better in smaller rooms. It's more beautiful. It's more understated even in its beauty in some ways, with the logos being smaller, with the contrasting carbon fiber and champagne cone, with the matte stainless steel instead of gloss. It integrates just exceptionally well. It gets out of the way. It's effortless. It's powerful. It's quick. It's dynamic. It's everything I would ever want in a subwoofer. I didn't compare it to my Carbon Special. Everyone is going to want to know that. So I've owned a pair of Carbon Specials for quite a while now. That was not a cheap subwoofer. I think at the tail end, they were $47.99 a piece, right? S850 is shockingly close to my Carbon Special. Shockingly close. In some ways better. It can get louder. That's one way it's better. The tonal qualities are a little bit different in my room. This may not be the case in every room. Ask REL if you're curious. But in my room, Carbon Special, outgoing Carbon Special, a little bit warmer, a little bit tonally richer. S850 tonally more neutral, right? So as far as bass character, right? This thing is really getting out of the way. Whereas my Carbon Specials were adding just a smidgen of flavor to the table. I enjoyed that quite a bit. But if you want the most accurate, I would say technically the tonal qualities of the S850 are going to be more accurate, right? Carbon Special, a little bit more enjoyable for me, however. I already told you guys the single S850 is way easier to set up in a small room like mine than the single Carbon Special because the gain is more granular, especially in those lower registers. In terms of like output, extension, in my room, I could not find a difference, but I do know the S850 can play louder. In terms of transient response, the outgoing Carbon Special was just a little bit, just maybe like 5% more resolution in the leading edges and transients around like 30, 35, 40 hertz. And I'm going to go ahead and say 99% of people aren't even going to notice that. I have lived with these subwoofers for so long. I'm like splitting hairs like crazy right now to point out these differences. And I'll leave you with this. If you have a local dealer that still has Carbon Special outgoing, and they're doing a deal on it, and you know it's maybe similar in price to the new S850 and you're not sure which one to get, they are both so good and so close in performance and so close in their greatness. Pick the one that fits your aesthetic taste. Seriously, I mean that because that's really what you should be choosing on, because that's actually the big difference. In terms of capabilities, they are so close. Unless you've got the golden ear of bass, and not many people do, I'm not sure most people would really hear the difference. Carbon Special, again, smidgen quicker, smidgen more texture, smidgen better transients in the lowest registers, right? So Carbon Special, my guys that own it, don't worry. New S850 is not outperforming it outright. No, it can get louder. That's one area where it definitely outperforms it. And tonally, it's just a little bit more neutral. But I think everyone who owns outgoing Carbon Special, it very much enjoys that slight bit of warmth it brings to the table. But anyways, back to wrapping things up, because we're probably been going on like 20 minutes now. This is what happens when I review REL subwoofers. I like them so much. I talk about them so much. And I've reviewed more subwoofers than just about anyone else has on YouTube. Possibly more than some of the publications. I don't know. I don't read magazines. I think most people don't read magazines anymore. But bass is kind of my thing. Subwoofers are kind of what I'm fanatical about. This is where my passion is in this hi-fi hobby. Don't get me wrong. I love speakers. I love amps. I like DACs just as much as the next guy. But I love subwoofers a lot. And the S850, as I said earlier, this is world-class bass fidelity. And for those that can afford it, go demo one, go order one, whatever. You're like, it's not going to let you down. I promise. And for those that can afford a 6-pack, I'm jealous. I don't know what to say. That's amazing. You know, if you got any questions, this YouTube channel does have a free Discord server. That Discord server is for those more complex questions. Okay. If you're serious about purchasing a product and you need help, that's what my free Discord is for. Please don't ask me in the YouTube comments. When we're talking about a product, especially at this price, it deserves some respect. It's going to require some back and forth. That's what my Discord is for. If you just want to say, hey, what's up, or ask a simple question, by all means, feel free to use those YouTube comment sections below. And until next time, take care.